Struth, Scott Simon, Willie Waddle and Jock Wallace. Legendary managers who guided Rangers to glory, but the achievements of these men who helped shape this great club are from a time gone by. For this generation, there can only be one man that represents everything a true Rangers legend stands for. Drive, determination, focus, dignity, glory. That man is Walter Smith. Smith was born on the 24th of February 1948 and grew up in Carmyle in Glasgow's East End. And like most young boys of the time, he had one desire: football. Walter's grandfather, Jock, first began to take him to see Rangers in the 1950s. It was then that Walter began his love affair with the Light Blues.
I went along with my grandfather early on, and he was a Rangers supporter. My dad was more a juniors man at Cambuslang Rangers rather than Rangers. So, you know, from one point of view, you know, I can always remember sitting with my grandfather, and it was, you know, Don Kitchen Brands, and in the very early stage, I had no recollection of seeing them playing, but I always remember that they were favourites of his, you know, Johnny Hullard's penalties, things like that. You know, that you know, your grandfather would regale you of tales of Willie Waddle and Willie Thornton and things like that.
And what sticks with Walter the most from these days was not the action on the pitch.
I just think, you know, the size of the crowds, you know, standing on a terrace and, you know, instead of having seated areas as we do nowadays. I think that's, you know, one of the big things is, I suppose, is you know, into your early teens when you go there on your own for the first time, it is, if anything, kind of intimidating that you're standing in among it, the crush, you know, the whole atmosphere of the place was something that I remember quite vividly as a young man.
As a teenager, Walter never lost his love of the club, and with age came independence.
My first real kind of memory of going on a regular basis and on my own and supporting was, you know, the early 60s there, you know, when Rangers had a really good team: Richie Shearer, Caldow, Greg McKinnon, Baxters, Henderson, McMillan, Miller, Brandon Wilson, Jimmy Miller being my favourite. And I was fortunate enough to play with him for a couple of years. He was ending his career, and I was really, you know, more or less at the start of mine at Dundee United. And you know, for some reason or other, I always like Jimmy, and it's always good to see him. He's here most match days at the present moment. So he was one that I favoured. But Jim Baxter was obviously star attraction at the time. He was a fantastic player. And I better mention John Greig as well, who's obviously still on the board at Rangers, and I think he would be really miffed if I didn't mention the greatest ever Ranger as part of that as well.
Inspired by the players he watched from the terracing, Walter took his first steps towards a career in football with Ashfield Juniors.
I think for all kids of you know, my age in that era, you know, it was one of the things that we did do. Nowadays we hear that scientifically kids should play 40 hours of football a week. I think there's no doubt that if our era, most of us did that. There was a main recreational aspect, the local park, you know, more than anything else. There was always a game on, you always got a game, especially if you had the ball. And that was how we went about it. So you start off playing yourself, and then obviously start amateur football, boys brigade, school games, that kind of thing. And it all started there, eventually ending up in the juniors at Ashfield, and from there to Dundee United. So I think my route into professional football was a fairly normal one at that time.
As a defender, Walter's form in the junior leagues began to attract the attention of the top teams in Scotland, and before long, Dundee United came calling. Friend and journalist Ronnie Scott takes up the story.
Of course, I had just recently stopped playing junior football. That was as far as I got, but I trained a wee bit at Tannadice with the part-timers, and I knew Walter from then. He come up and he was serving his time as an electrician. When Jerry Kerr signed him, his dad insisted that he stayed part-time, finished his trade, and then went full-time. But of course Walter's career took off, so I don't know if he can even mend a fuse now.
So, in 1966, the apprentice electrician from Carlisle travelled to Tayside to become a Dundee United player. And the management style of Jerry Kerr quickly inspired him.
Jerry Kerr, in the first 4 or 5 years that I was there, had had an excellent record as a manager. I think sometimes Jim McLean's feats with Dundee United, which are rightly lauded, don't give credit to Jerry for what he achieved, taking Dundee United from second division side, you know, up through stadium more or less, rebuilt the stand even as at the present moment. Was there in the early 60s, you know, due to him as much as anything else. And in that early part, Jerry was experienced manager. He was one who had a lot of experienced players. As I say, Jimmy Miller played there, David Wilson played as well. And Jerry used to get players from, you know, Rangers, Celtic, other places, put them in, and he formed good teams. And just as I was joining him, he had 2 wins against Barcelona, which is a remarkable achievement, you know, for anyone. So, you know, over the first period, Jerry Kerr was the manager, and as I say, I think at times maybe doesn't get the credit he deserves.
During that period, until he retired as manager in 1971, Kerr enhanced the club's footballing credibility and laid the foundations for Jim McLean to take Dundee United onwards to a distinguished domestic and European record.
When Jim took over, he had been a year as coach with John Prentice at Dundee, had made a good reputation for himself. He was the new tracksuit manager type of manager.
Well, that was in 1971, and I went to United, and to be completely honest, I knew quite a few of the first team players, but Walter was one of the younger ones, but in and out of the first team at that time. But I wasn't there long until Walter was asking questions on my tactics and everything, because right from the beginning he was very interested in the tactical side of the game, which for me was very, very good, because too many players say yes, 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 I understand, then they go out in the park and haven't a clue what you're talking about. But Walter, even right from the beginning, was interested in the tactics of the game.
You know, Jim McLean, you know, taking over from Jerry Kerr in the early 70s and being there and seeing the difference there, that kind of sparked me into doing, and I had done my SFA coaching badges when I was 23 or 24. And I was always interested in that kind of thing.
Walter, right from day one, was always one that would, you know, put up an argument to wee Jim about tactics, and then would obviously go into maybe taking young players and stuff like that, even in training for schoolboys, and similar to what I did myself.
But Jim McLean was very hands-on. He had, for every position, he knew what he wanted. There was emphasis put in teamwork, and you know, that was it was a slightly different and more modern approach.
We couldn't have sort of had a better sort of tutor than Jim McLean at that particular time.
For myself, as a kind of younger player, in my early 20s, you know, Jim's way made an impression on me and kicked off an interest in coaching, which I went in for my coaching badges when I was 23. So for some reason or other, I don't know why, I always had that kind of interest.
I had the impression that Walter would have just played away, certainly under Jerry Kerr, but as soon as Jim McLean came to United, everything changed. It was a new generation, a modern era, a new approach, and Walter got hooked on it. So I would say it was really Jim McLean that, and of course he was into coaching from a very, very early age, and he just seemed a natural.
Well, I first came across him obviously at the coaching courses at Largs. Now that would be, I'm just trying to think back, it was the late 60s, early 70s, and he was a young player. Then he was the coach at Dundee United, and he was involved heavily with the coaching sessions at Largs, and obviously you could see an absolutely outstanding exponent even as a young coach.
As each season went by, the club continued to improve, and in 1974, Jim McLean took Dundee United to their first ever Scottish Cup final.
Celtic were very strong, a good side. You know, that the side that had won the 9 in a row were really, they were just introducing new players there. Kenny Dalglish, no less. Danny McGrains, you know, and others were coming into what had been an extremely successful team. So, you know, they had a very good side. But it was Dundee United's first cup final, and we got there. If I look back now and I see, you know, the amount of times that Rangers and Celtic do get to finals as an advantage for them. You know, once they're there, other clubs maybe just get there every now and again for players, for a lot of players. The majority of ours, it was the first cup final. So, you know, you have to overcome a bit of nerves, etc., etc. And by the time you do that, or the time we did that, we were losing. So Celtic went on and won a cup there. But you know, from our own point of view, an experience getting there.
A stalwart in the heart of the defence, Walter Smith was never renowned for his goal-scoring exploits. However, when he did find the back of the net, it was well worth savouring.
Yeah, kissed the boot. I don't know how I managed to do that, but you know, I think the main part of that was Andy Gray, who was coming in. He missed the cross, and I managed to put it in at the back post. I don't know why I was ever there. I was never really that far up the park, you know, at any time I was playing. But that's something that gets featured and mentioned quite a number of occasions.
In 1975, Walter left Tayside for Clydeside when he joined Dumbarton, who were managed by Alex Wright, and he spent 2 years there.
Good experience. We had a good team then. We were, you know, a lot of good players, a lot of good young players. John Burke, Ian Wallace, you know, Graham Sinclair. All went on to have very good careers and good experienced players. So I enjoyed that, although I still trained and lived in Dundee. I just went down for the games, but I enjoyed the year there, and then eventually came back to Dundee United.
Well, I keep reminding him every time I see him that I sold him for 5,000 and bought him back for 2,500. But he wins the argument because he keeps telling me how many games we went on undefeated when he came back, and that's true actually. One of the first games was at Ibrox actually, and I think we won by the odd goal. Walter was always, his assets as a player was a thinker and reading the game rather than somebody that was outstandingly big or outstandingly fast or whatever. He actually was average pace and average height for a defender, but his reading of the game even at that time was excellent.
He read the game well. He was a natural defender, but Dundee United used him quite a lot as a defensive midfield player in their European ties. And Walter was always first pick when United went away from home in Europe. Jim would build his team around, you know, Walter would be the anchor man and then the others would play around about him. But just that slight lack of pace prevented him going to the very top.
In his second spell at Dundee United, Walter struggled with a pelvic injury that limited his appearances to only 26 in 3 years. But it was at this time he began to consider coaching as a way to continue in football.
Jim McLean asked the players if anybody would be keen in taking, you know, the S-Form training, which is like schoolboy training. And so I started doing that. And I did that for Jim for 3 or 4 years. I then got a pelvic injury that kept me out for most of a season. And he asked me if I could help him, you know, in the daily work. He didn't have a coach working with him at the time. He asked me if I could help out at the end of that year when I was fit to come back. I'll not mention his exact words, but he did say that he felt I was probably better at the coaching than I was at the playing. And he asked me if I would join him as player coach initially.
Well, to be completely honest, it was to save money with Dundee United. When I went to United, I was only the coach, the only one on the coaching side of the game. And that gave me the opportunity to pick and choose who my assistants were going to be. And Walter was very interested and always asked questions. From then, he started taking the reserves when they were away from home or vice versa at home. And that's how it all started. I didn't know how good he would be or whatever, but I knew that he was always asking questions, which in my opinion was good, rather than going on the park not knowing what he was supposed to do. And from there, that's how it started.
There were two masters at that time in Scottish football, Alec Ferguson and Jim McLean. And I think Walter would be first to agree that he was privileged to work with Jim McLean, and my colleague Archie Knox, he was privileged to work with the other master, Alec Ferguson. So two young lads, at that time anyway, Knox and Smith, they were both very lucky.
Even when he became assistant manager at Dundee United, Jim was quite happy for Walter to take press conferences and deal with us now and again, and he was a natural at that, even as a very young man. I can remember him holding court at Dens Park one day after a derby match. Jim decided to let Walter talk to the press after the game. And I mean, Walter was still young enough to have been playing in the game, but he handled it brilliantly. Very diplomatic from a very early age.
Jim McLean was keen to give youth a chance, and this was key in the club's success for the next 2 decades.
It was just the start of Dundee United's most successful team. A lot of the younger players were, had been playing in the reserve team, and they were coming through. Damien Aries, Graham Paynes, etc. And we're all starting to come through. Billy Kirkwood, John Holt, lads whose names are now kind of etched in Dundee United's history. They were coming into the team, so it meant us, even not particularly old players, were pushed into the reserve team, and Jim's younger team started to come to the fore.
He was definitely a huge help to Jim in those days. He definitely helped to develop these young players that all come through at Tannadice, and Jim's the first person to give him credit for that, of course. Great man management skills, could work with young players, could put the fear of death in young players. They used to call him the Bear, big imposing man, Walter, and he wasn't slow to stretch up to his full height and width and take them into the boot room and put the light out and say, "Come on then, let's have a go." That usually worked. There was never a blow struck, but he got his point across.
With Walter as his second in command, McLean led Dundee United to back-to-back League Cup successes, as well as the Scottish Premier Division title for the first time in the club's history in 1983.
It was great. I was, like all things, I was playing, and I made occasional first team game, but mainly taking the reserve team is due to that. So I was still playing and training, doing bits of coaching work there, but being involved and seeing the work that Jim had carried out over the first 5 or 6 years, and then the work he was doing with these younger players and getting in was a huge learning experience for me. And being there and being in amongst it was great to experience that aspect of it. Then the quest to turn that into winners was a big thing as well. We won the League Cup consecutive years, as you say, and 1982-83 managed to win a league championship, which was terrific there. It was a period of time when our club now, Rangers, weren't enjoying the best of successes. Aberdeen were having some joy there. They won 3 league championships in a period of time. Celtic won the rest along with Dundee United. So it was a terrific achievement, and one that I don't think anybody can praise Jim McLean enough for the work that was done in the years leading up to that, and also for the fact that the majority of players that were there, I think only Paul Hegarty and Eamon Bannon were players that they paid any money for, and even then, in comparison to modern days, was next to nothing. So it was a fantastic achievement there.
At that time, United had established a strong reputation in Europe, with wins over sides like Monaco, PSV and Werder Bremen. And back in Scotland, the reputation of Walter Smith was also growing.
Well, yes, he was. Andy Roxburgh was very astute, I think. Anyway, Andy looked for the best coach he could find to work with the under-18 team, And I first remember Walter working with the youths. Now that under-18 team was hugely successful, and they became the Scotland under-20 team and went to Mexico in the World Cup finals. And I'm thinking of players like Brian Gunn and of course Big Davy McPherson from Rangers. Others, Paul McStay, Pat Nevin, Brian McClare, Davy Bowman. I'm thinking of Derek Black, what a team they had. And they got to the quarterfinals of the World Championship. But when they were away playing in Europe, the trainer or the physio with the team was a wee guy at Clyde called John Watson, and John's well known in Scottish football. John would phone me and said, the young coach at Dundee United, he's still trying to play, he's a player coach. I said, who's that? He says, Walter Smith. He said, he says, he's a good guy. Walter would like a training session at Clyde because we're coming back late on the Wednesday night, and maybe if he could train the Thursday night, or come back on the Thursday rather, train the Thursday night. I said, okay. Now, when I heard Walter was coming, I got every possible cone from the streets of Glasgow, and I got canes, and I got hurdles, and I set out a training session designed to murder him on the Thursday night. And Walter would come and say, what's going on here, Bruin? It's a knockout. I says, no, it's a training session, Walter. And of course, we didn't normally do that, but we pretended. I said to all the boys, we've got this visitor for Dundee United. We'll tell him this is normal for us. Well, Walter was breathing out a certain part of his anatomy on the hurdles and the canes. He says, are we ever going to get a kick at a football? But it was just purely to wind Walter up. But he took it, as you can imagine, in the best possible way. Great, good humour. And I've got to say, terrific enthusiasm for a training session. And of course, his own training sessions latterly, or subsequently rather, were exemplary. So, you know, he learned from Jim McLean football, and he learned how to jump hurdles when he came to Shawfield Stadium.
It was at that time that Walter came across the man who, decades later, would eventually become his right-hand man.
I think I'm back to my Scotland youth days. Walter and Andy Roxburgh took the team, the Scotland under-18 team. I was with St Johnstone at the time. I think I was maybe 16 or 17. It'd be 1978, 79. The first tournament we went to was a tournament in Monte Carlo. Not a bad place to open your account in international football, it has to be said, and Walter took the team, as I say, with Andy Roxburgh. So goes back, I'm scared to think now, it's 32, 33 years. And I've been very, very fortunate to work with him since. But we actually had a very, very good team. When I think about that Scottish youth team, you know, we played, I think Davy Bowman played in that team, you know, and Scott McGarvey at Manchester United, Big Nicky Walker, you know, good lads and good players. And Walter and I say Andy took the team, and later on that year we went to the European Championships as well. So no, it was a good side, and that's when I first came across Walter in a professional term, in professional management.
Were you involved in under-21s as well? Sir?
I was. I played in the 21s as well. We got one under-21 cap against Belgium at Tannadice, funnily enough. Walter's where he started his coaching career. So yeah, I think all the way through youth level and indeed under-21 level I've known Walter.
In Iceland in 1982. First met him, he gave me a clip round the head, so nothing changes. I'm still getting clips about 25 years later up in the stand. He was part of the Craig Brown, Andy Roxburgh regime in Scotland then, and came across him and just struck up a relationship with him right away. Obviously coming from Glasgow, and the gaffer coming from Glasgow, I think now there's a bit of rapport between us, because I was the shyest boy then. And ever since then, it's been a great time for me now. Obviously, I lost my father at a young age, and the gaffer was there to steady me, as I say. And again, now he's been always a person I've always looked up to.
It was after United had triumphed in the then Scottish Premier Division that Jim McLean was courted by Walter's boyhood heroes, Rangers.
I was offered the Rangers job. He came to me and he says, "You looked at the trophy in the boardroom." I says, "What do you mean, look at the trophy in the boardroom?" He says, you see it Rangers, Celtic, Rangers, Celtic, Rangers, Celtic. I says, "I know that." He says, "I can't believe you're not going to take the job at Ibrox."
First of all, said to me that he had recommended me for a job at Dundee United, but you know, Dennis said, well, would you like to go to Rangers? I said, of course I would. You know, like, when you don't get the opportunity to come and work at Ibrox as a player, and when you realise you're not good enough to get there as a player, your only other hope is management-wise, and even then that's a difficult task. So I managed to, and I thought Jim would get there, and when he didn't take it, there was obviously a disappointment on my own part.
It looked like Jim would take it for a while, and of course he told Walter, and Walter was dead chuffed. Oh, we've got to Ibrox. And then Jim changed his mind and decided he would stay at Dundee United. Walter was going to be a bear with a sore head.
And at that time, I didn't even realise it was a Rangers supporter, but I should have, because I knew he came from Cumberslang.
As I say, maybe in the longer term, it has turned out a good thing for me that Jim didn't take a job.
Walter's time at Ibrox would have to wait. In the interim, he continued to play his part as the new firm dominated Scottish football. Aberdeen, under the guidance of Sir Alex Ferguson, and United, under McLean's stewardship, had shifted the power base, and with that great rivalry came great friendship between the coaching staff.
Oh, it was a great rivalry, dubbed media-wise as a new firm, and you know, Alec and Jim being young and up-and-coming managers who were challenging the hierarchy of Scottish football, and you know, it was a really good period to be involved in. I can assure everybody, well, Rangers and Celtic games are hard fought, always have been. At that era, Dundee United and Aberdeen were equally so, and there were some hairy moments for both sides over that. You know, Sir Alec and Jim McLean had been friends, and they had gone through their coaching period at Largs at the same time, and got to know each other reasonably well. And it was through there, and Archie Knox, who was a friend of mine, was you know, Alec's assistant. So we got to know each other over that period of time.
Well, I first come across him when I'd already had my badges. I used to go to the coaching school every year. In fact, when I got my full badge, my roommate was Jim McLean, his old boss at Tannadice. And in the later years, when Walter started taking an interest in the coaching side, and when he come to the end of his career, my first real contact with him, I played against him actually a couple of times. Actually, I think I played against my reserve game actually, Rangers. Yeah, it must have been Rangers reserve game once. And then he went to Dumbarton as a player coach there, and that was my first real indication that he was starting to get into that field. And knowing him, watching him work in the coaching schools, when I became the manager of Aberdeen in '78, I thought he was ideal for me to have as an assistant at Aberdeen. Now, I was on holiday in Malta that year. I always remember it was a World Cup final day, Argentina and Holland. And I phoned wee Jim because to approach him for Walter. And of course, I get that. He's on a 6-year contract and he's got a 4-year option. You know, it's one of these belt and braces chained to the walls contracts that wee Jim was specialised in. But he was threatening all sorts of legal action against me, and other than sending the mafia to me, he was not too pleased.
He reflects that he asked you to be his assistant at Aberdeen back in 1978, but was firmly rebuffed by Mr. Jim McLean.
Yes, he was. He asked me on a couple of occasions, and was firmly rebuffed on occasions. I think mainly due to the fact that Dundee United's penchant for long-term contracts, regardless of coaching or playing, came to the fore there. But no, Alec had asked on a couple of occasions, but you know, he had good assistants and Archie and others. Archie had moved to Dundee to manage. So we didn't get the opportunity to come together until maybe a bit later.
Because at that time then, with this great competition between ourselves and Dundee United, both Jim and Walter and myself and Archie got very close together. We used to travel, we used to get private planes to go to Belgium, we watch matches, in Holland to watch matches. And he's one of these wee sort of a 4-seater things that I always remember. We come back for one game and the guy says, see if you can see a chink in the clouds. And we kept looking for it because we're going to Scone at Perth, you know, the airport at Perth, private plane place. And somebody says, "Oh, there's one there," and they turned the engine off and just dropped down. I swear, honestly, because we just, that white hair's gone whiter. Oh, it was really scary. It was, but we used to do that a lot, and and of course, whoever they were going to watch and whoever we were going to watch, nothing was said. It was omerta, you know. Nothing was said, but I mean, it'd be great times at that time, and I got to know Walter very well.
When I went up to Aberdeen, then we used to come down and play them at five-a-sides and stuff like that. And you know, we always had a five-a-side team up at Aberdeen, went around the local schools and played the local schools and stuff like that. And then it'd be the occasional challenge against the Dundee United, who had Gordon Wallace and wee Jim and Walter, obviously.
We used to have five-a-sides against Alec Ferguson and Walter, myself, Gordon Wallace, Jockey Scott, and a school teacher played in goals for the five-a-sides. And obviously we were in close contact, except when we were playing each other.
God, they would be as bad as first team games, you know. The competitiveness in these games, you'd have thought at that age we would have known a bit better.
Any touchline discussions with him during your rivalry at Dundee United and Aberdeen?
God, I was always a skill, and hey, shut up, sit down there. Wee Jim was.
There would be plenty said to referees, plenty said to opposition dugouts, but after it was all done and dusted, then you just got on with it and forgot about it.
And we always used to get each other stick in the programmes, you know. But that great famous one when I got on the April Fool's Day, April Fool, Wee Jim, and you know, the old one, Mr. Lion, you know, and he phones up Calder Park Zoo. I want to speak to Mr. Lion. So they were playing the semi-final of the European Cup against Roma. Well, I always remember Walter telling me, he says he was in the track and the players a sort of a wee warm up in the morning of the game, and Wee Jim had done with the April Fool. And he comes down and he says to Walter, "Ah, bandit's done me." He says, and he's told Walter started laughing. He says, "What are you laughing at?" He says, "Why can I not laugh? This is the best one I've ever heard." Jim says, "Don't tell the players." Walter says, "Everybody knew within about 10 minutes. Don't tell the players." Oh, we had a great laugh.
So Walter missed out on working with Ferguson, but they eventually met up together within the Scotland international setup.
I, at the time, had involvement with the Scottish Youths, and there I was Andy Roxburgh in the Scottish Youth team for 8 years. So during that period, I met Sir Alec quite often. He had taken over as assistant to Mr. Steen, and you know, Jim McLean had done that for a few years. Then Alec took over there as Mr. Steen's assistant. So I was involved with under-21s for a few games. So we started to meet, and obviously after, you know, Mr. Steen sadly passed away, you know, Sir Alec asked me if I would be his assistant at the World Cup, and I was obviously, as a young assistant manager, delighted to go along and gain the experience that he could give me.
But that time Walter was getting really respected as a top coach in the country, really, you know, and yeah, that was the obvious reason. Archie had gone into management, you see, at Dundee, and I felt that, plus the fact that, you know, there's a wee bit of sort of loyalty to the fact that when I tried to get him the very first time and not getting him, I think it was due to give him that respect and say, "Look, Walter, you know, I want to make this up. I'd love to have taken the time, but it was impossible because it'd be Jim, blah, blah, blah." And he was delighted. And I also took Archie with me too, because, you know, Archie, I respected Archie very much. And Craigie Brown, I took Craigie, and Andy Roxburgh. I had a terrific staff with me, you know, good experience and good types, you know, good lads, you know. So we had a great time in Mexico, even although we didn't win it.
Alec Ferguson, he wasn't Sir then, he was just Alec at that time. Alec picked his pals to go to Mexico. When Jock Stein sadly died, that we gave Alec the job, and Alec Ferguson was 10 games in charge of Scotland. Now, he had the choice of anyone to come as his colleague or his assistant. I never call the assistant colleague. And so Alec looked around for his best possible colleague, and who did he choose? Walter. And then to back up Walter, another couple of his pals, Archie and me. And Archie and I, we were the kind of supporting act. We were just the dog's bodies. But, you know, it was a great honour for me to be chosen amongst these guys to go on the staff to Mexico. I was the part-time manager at Clyde. I'd actually took off my work. I was working at a College of Education in there, so I had to get a month off, which I asked for a month's unpaid leave of absence, which they were willing to give me. But I listened to Alec and of course to Walter and worked with Archie. Every training session every day, we had to go. It was altitude in Mexico. So we had to go well in advance of the World Cup, and we went to New Mexico, a lovely place called Santa Fe, and it was a smashing 3 weeks there, working with the players at altitude, and of course Walter was outstanding, as we know he is.
That was not the only time Sir Alex attempted to persuade Walter to work with him, but Smith had made plans of his own.
I'd been offered the Arsenal job. I had Walter as my assistant at that time after Jock died in September '85. And I'd taken the job on, and I got Walter as my assistant. And we were going to play in Israel. And I didn't know Walter had been approached by Rangers.
We were away on a Scotland trip, and Sir Alec had been offered the opportunity to go there. You know, and that would be, you know, a good maybe 7-8 months before he moved to Manchester United. But whatever happened, he didn't get the opportunity to go there, didn't take the opportunity to go. And you know, it wasn't until later, but that period of time, I had known that I was going to get the opportunity to come to Rangers along with Graham Souness. So, you know, for me, I had made up my mind that that's where I would like to go.
I said to Walter, I've been offered this Arsenal job. What do you think? So, it's a big club, you know. I says, would you fancy coming with me? He says, he says, I'm going to Rangers. I said, what? When did this happen? He says, it's a long story, I'll tell you after. But it turned out that Graham Souness was going to be coming as the manager, and Walter.
It's amazing how things could have worked out. Imagine if you'd gone to Highbury with Alec Ferguson in '86.
Well, I mean, you know, these things happen in anybody's life, don't they? You never know, you know, the twists and turns and what you're going to do. And as I say, everything that's happened to me has turned out well. I've got no complaints at all. But yes, it could have been other, say, twists and turns. But you know, if I was going to leave Dundee United, I was hoping to go as a manager in my own right. But the call when I got it from initially David Holmes, you know, was one that I couldn't turn down. And I must say, you know, the 5 years as Graham's assistant was as enjoyable 5 years as I've had in football.
And so to Rangers. Throughout the early 80s, the club had struggled to recapture their previous glories. Jock Wallace's second spell as manager had proved to be a difficult one.
Foist. Magnificent goal, Ali McCoist. Scotland's top goal scorer. And a perfect example of how he's achieved that.
In the final few weeks of season 1985-86, even with the genius of Davy Cooper, the striking quality of Ali McCoist, and the emerging talent of Ian Durrant, the Light Blues were sitting mid-table. A change was needed, and when it came, it would not only revolutionise Rangers, but also the whole of Scottish football forever.
So, gentlemen, could I just say to you, welcome our new player manager, Graham Souness. Welcome to the club, Graham.
Yeah, obviously I'm new to management. I'm going to make mistakes, but obviously with the people around me, there won't be big ones. And really the playing side of it is down to me. Although I will experience problems, I'm coming into a different type of football to what I'm used to. You know, I feel if you're a good player, you can handle that. I'll make mistakes, but hopefully there won't be big ones, and I won't make them. I won't repeat them.
I was asked by David Holmes if I would be prepared to come to Rangers as Graham's assistant. Which obviously I said I would be delighted to do.
It was David Holmes. When he offered me the job, he thought, and he correctly so, he thought that would be a good idea if I got someone who knew the Scottish game inside out. And I'd worked with Walter. When I was still playing, obviously, with the Scottish team, and Walter had been on the staff with Jock Stein and later with Alex Ferguson. So I knew Walter a wee bit, and I had no hesitation in saying yes. You know, he came across as a very straightforward footballing man, and that's how he turned out to be. You know, and as well as a great guy, we got on very, very well, more or less from day one. We didn't agree on everything, which was healthy, but we certainly, I think, were a formidable partnership.
And that was us when we were on the road, even though we managed to stay secret until about 3 games towards the end of the season there. But after that, I had to join them and take the club for the last 3 games of that season before Graham could get released from Sampdoria to come for, I think his first match was a Glasgow Cup final here on a Friday evening that we managed to win 3-2. So, and Ali McCoy's hat-trick, believe it or not, won us that one. So that was the start, but obviously I was delighted, and it was a great time to be involved at the club.
I felt that it was definitely a magnificent opportunity for Walter, but I had recommended him to the Dundee United chairman to take over for myself, and he would have got the job at Dundee United if he'd have wanted. But I don't think he would have taken it, because I now know how desperate he was to work for Rangers.
He could have carried on at Dundee United and probably, well, most certainly would have been offered the job had we Jim decided to stand down. But no, that was a fantastic move for Walter then, and he was well equipped for that. You know, then he had good experience at Dundee United doing the job that he was going to be doing at Rangers, and certainly would be a big help to Graham Souness, who was going into his first, and I think Graham would be the first to admit, going into his first managerial appointment. Then he's had somebody with Walter's experience that knew the Scottish game outside in, and was a top coach to go along with it. Then it would have been great for Graham.
Perfect combination, yeah. I mean, Graham Souness had all the good contacts down in England. He'd just come back from playing in Italy. He was known worldwide, but he'd never worked in Scotland. So Walter was just absolutely perfect for him, because he knew everybody in the Scottish game, whether it was at Berwick Rangers or Celtic. You know, he knew them all.
You know, what did I know about Scottish football? And what did I know about management? You think as a big player, as an experienced player, you'll just drop into management. But no, there's nothing really, when you're a player, that prepares you for management. You've got to experience that. And Walter had been an assistant to Jim McLean for a number of years, so he knew about management and how it worked. And for my part, I was, had a big L plate on both the front and the back.
I would probably think that might be, Graham Souness' best signing. He made some great signings, Terry Butcher and Maurice Johnson, Chris Woods. But I'd have to say, I think his best signing was Walter Smith. There's no doubt about that, in my opinion. Very, very knowledgeable coach and a knowledgeable man, but also a winner, a real winner.
No way that I was ever keen to lose Walter, but at the end of the day, there's no way you could hold him back.
The era of Souness and Smith had begun, and it was a huge task to reawaken a sleeping giant and return Rangers to the top of Scottish football. Bold steps were called for, and bold they were, with the England goalkeeper Chris Woods and captain Terry Butcher, the first big names to join the Light Blues.
Chris Woods was a big signing, but this one was a bigger signing in every way. No, we're absolutely delighted. We see Terry as the backbone of the team for a lot of years to come. He will immediately be our captain. I think he's everything that a captain should be in stature, the way he plays the game of football, the way he lives away from the field of play. So he will be a captain. I think he's a natural leader. And if he plays like he has been playing for the last 5-6 years, the people here in Scotland will love him.
Well, Graham had no idea about Scottish football for a start. All his life has been spent in England. Went from, as a young 15-year-old boy from Edinburgh down to Tottenham and then up to Middlesbrough to Liverpool. So knowing the scene in Scotland at the time, it was a difficult task because Rangers were in the doldrums at the time. Before Graham and Walter went there, they were in a torrid time, and ourselves and Dundee United and Celtic were well ahead of Rangers. But the philosophy of Graham of getting the best players, it galvanised Rangers to an extent. It was an overnight change almost.
They all took a lift from the influx of such great players, and it was terrific. Pre-season training, you could obviously tell, was up there, and it was terrific. There was a great mood in the camp, and right away, everyone was looking forward to the season starting.
Over the summer, the partnership was beginning to gel. Walter's experience of the Scottish game was invaluable to the rookie manager, and the pair started to get the best out of the Rangers players.
Well, about a good cop, bad cop there, you never knew which one you were getting until he did something wrong. They had it rehearsed. Forget New York, the Hill Street Blues, we had the good cop, bad cop as well. Very seldom did you get two good cops or two bad cops, but no, they were very good. They were very, very good. Walter obviously he made it known when things weren't going well, but he also made it known when things are going well. In many ways, he was old school, very, very fair, very honest. If you did something well, he'd tell you. If you didn't do something well, he would also tell you. Which I've always felt all the way throughout my career as a player, certainly, and dealing with players now. I think that's the one thing the only thing that the players really, really, really ask for in a coach and a manager, and that's honesty and fairness.
And so to August the 9th, 1986. Graham Souness leads out Rangers against Hibs. The outcome? A 2-1 defeat for the Light Blues. But the disappointing result to kick off the Souness era was the last thing people would remember from an infamous match at Easter Road.
Well, that's an aspect of the Scottish game with which Graham Souness may not be familiar. And tempers have gone completely now. The Hibs supporters going wild on the far side, but a red card has been shown to Graham Souness. Graham Souness has been ordered off, and Easter Road is going wild. George McCluskey showing Souness the damage inflicted. So Souness' first competitive game for Rangers last 37 minutes.
Souness through the middle is McCoist. He's onside. A great chance for Rangers. Brilliantly taken.
Rangers showed improvements. Results began to turn their way. And in Europe, Davy Cooper made the Ilves Tampere defenders look rather foolish.
Amazing one by Cooper. Could be a fantastic goal. It is. Oh, Davy Cooper, brilliant. Flick, hat-trick, what a goal.
The big names were showing the Rangers fans what they had been missing for so long. And the manager would chip in with the odd goal too.
A fine effort from Hewitt, brilliantly saved by Woods. Still Ted McMinn, this Souness. It's over the line. The goal's been given. A superb goal from Graham Souness. Cooper's missed kick, but McCoist has it for Rangers. Here's Fleck on his right. Fleck is onside, the chance to clinch it for Rangers. McCoist makes it 2, and Aberdeen are incensed that there was no offside flag. 10 minutes from time, Aberdeen players surrounding the linesman. Archie Knox is out on the touchline as well. Archie Knox being escorted back to the dugout. see Tim Duncan coming across.
I can vaguely remember the game. You're going back a few years now, right enough, but no, any game, you know, when Alec was involved in any game against the old firm or the new firm, if you like, or any game for that matter, then it was a case that he had to win. So there'd be handshakes at the end of the game, but you were sort of, it would be that inner sort of anger and that hurt that you've lost to one of your rivals.
Of moment. The hoist.
Souness and Smith were giving the fans what they had craved, and a new belief swept round the club. Rangers were contenders. The next step was to become winners.
Well, like everything else, I think when the changes there, the expectation, although the expectation's always high, I mean, it was through the roof at that stage, you know, the fact that, you know, Graham Souness was coming to be the manager. And when I look back at it now, Graham did well to handle all the expectation and the levels that were put up, you know, before a ball was kicked. So the quicker that we managed to get a win under our belts, the better. And obviously League Cup always gives you the first opportunity to win a season. That, it was even earlier, I think it's towards the end of October or something like that, that the League Cup final was played. So we won that one, and we were delighted to win it and get on the road.
And Cammy Fraser is there, Butcher's there, Durant is there and scores! Durant has scored for Rangers. Feels for a penalty kick there. It's a given. It's a penalty to Rangers. A vital moment in this game. I make it 5.5 minutes remaining of the Skol Cup final. Penalty to Rangers. 2-1.
You know, that I think signalled to everyone, you know, that Rangers were going to be a force again after a long period of where, you know, success that was expected at the club didn't come to them.
It's just fantastic because, as you rightly say, when I first came to the club, you know, don't get me wrong, we were winning League Cups and things like that, but we weren't anywhere near challenging for the League Championship where we should be. But we were winning things. But the fact when Graham and Walter took over, all of a sudden it was expected, obviously, to challenge for the league.
It was new. It was all new to me. It was exciting. We were, you know, everyone was talking about us. Sometimes for not the right reasons. We're making lots of headlines. Sometimes for not the right reasons. But it was a great time to be at Rangers, and I think, you know, I think if you ask the players at that time, they enjoyed being there. I think, again, Walter would have been. He spent. I'm not as daft as it sounds, maybe more time in the dressing room than I did, although I was still playing on a daily basis, you know, and he was around the players all the time, and they had great confidence in him. And if there was any issues, it was Walter that went to, and then Walter would tell me what I wanted to hear, or sometimes not what I wanted to hear. Or 9 times out of 10, he'd have solved the problem before it even got to my door. So I said, I can't speak highly enough of him.
It was fantastic up to the hotel on the Friday night. You could tell that there was a nervous air about everyone there. Going to Pittodrie, which is never an easy place for any Rangers team to go and win. When we were turning up that day, the place just seemed full of Rangers supporters. I mean, they were coming from everywhere. So it was a great atmosphere on the ground that day. A typical Rangers and Aberdeen game.
The season began in controversial circumstances for Graham Souness, and it was to end in a similar fashion, as he was sent off in the penultimate game against Aberdeen. However, it didn't stop Rangers clinching their first championship since 1978.
Fantastic, absolutely fantastic memories and great days, you know. I can still see Big Butch heading in Coop's cross for the goal at Pittodrie and things like that. I can still remember the scenes after the game. You know, that particular league campaign meant so much to everybody, fans, players, management included, you know, because we'd obviously gone so long as a club not winning the championship. So it was wonderful to be part of a team just rejuvenated, revitalised.
Fantastic scenes at the end, fantastic bus journey down to Glasgow, and to clinch our first championship in the first year there was a terrific achievement for everybody.
The fans had a real desire and a real genuine happiness and thrill to go to watch a team and to see their team competing at the top of the table and winning championships. It was a magical time, you know, certainly in the club's history. Indeed, my own memories were fabulous times.
Compared with the heady double trophy win in their first full season at Ibrox, the 87-88 campaign was a roller coaster one. Injuries to both Graham Souness and Terry Butcher meant that players had to be brought in as cover, and even although the likes of Gough, Wilkins and Walters were of immense quality, Rangers could not find the right consistency.
We lost Graham from the playing staff, really. I mean, Graham played a few games the second year. There, Terry Butcher broke his leg, you know, and we didn't really, you know, add an awful lot of players to that at that time. So that second year, you know, showed us that, you know, the first year everybody was up there, they were fit, they were playing, they were new. We got affected by those injuries and we weren't able to get the level of player in that we should have.
Good play by McCoist. A delicate ball across. Kenny Black, and it's on the flank for Rangers. An absolute gift for Robert Black. This is Galloway. Tremendous goal from Mike Galloway. First has support on the outside from Durant. There's Black. It's got in. It's an own goal. Rangers take the lead. Black is injured and it looks as though Craig Levein put it into his own net. Corner kick. There's McPherson. Turned in by Robertson. The ball's in the net. And Hearts are back on level terms. Now Durant. Shooting chance for Durant. Yes! 17 minutes in the end. The Rangers bench celebrates. An Ian Durant special. Ball releasing Fleck. Fleck is away from Craig Robertson. A chance on for Rangers. There's McCoist. It's a very poor one. Will find its way to Durant. There's Derek Ferguson. He lost McCoist. Goal number 2 for Rangers. Only played it inside. Trevor Smith just out of range. Simmons wins it. That's for McCoist for his hat-trick. Yes! No problem at all for Ally McCoist. Ball breaks for McCall. Cathy Stearns. There's Souness. Oh, great play from Souness. Absolutely masterly from the Rangers player manager. And how he enjoyed that little piece of action. Roberts is dictating things. That's brilliantly stopped by Davy Cooper. 21 minutes gone, Rangers have equalised. Leighton prepares to face Ian Durant. Now it certainly would be fitting if Durant took the final kick to win the cup for Rangers. If Durant scores, Rangers are the winners. There will be no need for any other kick. Perfectly taken by Durant. Rangers have won the Skol League Cup after a match packed full of drama.
The epic highs of defending the League Cup against Aberdeen were matched with a disappointing third spot in the league. The only game that people really look back to from that season is remembered for all the wrong reasons.
And an angry exchange there between McAvenny and Woods, and here's trouble now. And this is what everyone was hoping would not arise. Certainly appears to be a red card for McAvenny. And a red card also for Chris Woods. So both sides reduced to 10 men. Well, an act of sheer folly on the part of the players involved in that incident. Sandy Walker going through, and Roberts. No mistake this time. Here's Walker. That's for Peter Grant. That's the second. Still Richard Gough. Now McCoist with a great chance for Rangers. He's made it. Rangers are right back in the match. Ali McCoist with his 19th goal of the season. There they go inside. McCarthy did well with the header, but it's Durant again. The last chance perhaps for Rangers. The chance is on for Gough. Richard Gough makes it 2 apiece. And the final minute of the match. What incredible drama here at Ibrox.
Season 1988-89 came with Walter and Graham having had a full pre-season with the rebuilt team, which included big money signing Gary Stevens. The pair had a squad full of promise, and Rangers were determined to reclaim the Scottish Premier Division title. That determination was there for all to see when Celtic came to Ibrox in August 1988.
Richard Gough doing well, and Stevens very confident on the ball. Dangerous moment though, the ball coming across goal for Butcher's header. That's off the post, there's McAvenny! Celtic are in front! Gough is in the box once again. So is Butcher. Back to Brown. Blocked by McCarthy, there's McCoist! Deadly finishing by Ali McCoist. 10 minutes gone, Rangers are back on terms, and that was top-class striking. Gough and Butcher have gone up. It's launched in field by Stevens, there's Butcher. Back with Wilkins. Absolutely magnificent from Ray Wilkins. 10 minutes to half-time. A goal which Ray Wilkins will never have bettered in an illustrious career. Ian Andrews had not a hope. Well, a goal made in England. The throw from Gary Stevens. The header on from Terry Butcher. The stunning volley from Wilkins. And Andrews scarcely moved. Here's Durant retrieving it for Rangers. McCoist nods it on, an awkward one for Andrews. And the ball is in the net. It's a goal for Rangers. Durant takes the credit. And it's a disaster for Ian Andrews. McCoist to Walters. Walters now facing McCarthy. Putting in a fine cross. Kevin Drinkle. Walters to Drinkle. It's 4-1 to Rangers. White judging the fight well. There's Brown. Taken in trouble as Ali McCoist. Down he goes this time at Walters. Mark Walters makes it 5. Responsibility with Ian Durant. It's in off the post. Rangers go in front. Well, this is Mark Walters. Turning Whittaker across the far post. There's Nisbet. 2-0 to Rangers. Target there is Kevin Brinkle. There's an error by Hunter. There's McCoist.
The season continued at pace, and the League Cup was won for the third consecutive season.
He's done it. And that's the equaliser. Dodds. And Ferguson was a brilliant goal. Here's Bat. There's Dodds, and that's in the equaliser. A brilliant goal by Dodds. Goff is there, and it's there. Ali McCoist. I doubt very much if any game could have equalled the one last season between Lisbon, but one has to say, in a different sort of way, that was an utterly superb match. It is Terry Butcher with the Skull Cup.
Rangers were in the ascendancy on the pitch and were gaining admirers from all over the country, one of which was a young entrepreneur and a good friend of Graham Souness, David Murray. Attracted by the idea of owning one of Scotland's highest profile football clubs, on the 23rd of November 1988, Murray secured the purchase of Rangers for the sum of £6 million.
Sir David Murray came in, and that obviously changed, and we were able to start to get a good level of player back into the team again. And on we go, we started winning that campaign, and going on and winning obviously the next 8 in a row. So for ourselves, that change round was a big one. Ray Wilkins coming into the team, Terry Butcher getting back fit again, other players coming and joining us, Maurice Johnson, etc. All started to come in, and Gary Stevens, Trevor Stevens, we had a whole list of players who were joining us at that time. It was, again, after having the high of the first year, feeling the low of the second year, getting the lift up again was a terrific thing for everyone. And the side that went from about 88 onwards there were a terrific team.
Celtic to take this. It's just there, yes. Morris, 1-0. There's Butcher with it, it's in! Butcher, the equaliser. Terry Butcher, rising above them all he needed was the slightest glance, and it soared away from Bona. It's there. Rangers are in the lead, 2-1. Mark Walters puts them there, and he did that with the greatest of ease, very near the goalkeeper, but it went in. Ferguson with the shot is there. There was a deflection, I think. In came Ferguson, and that shot whistled in, and I think there was a deflection. But Rangers are now 3-1 in the lead. That's a beautiful ball. Here's Walters through. Walters with a great chance, and he done it. Number 4 for Rangers in a breakaway. Beautifully taken goal.
The New Year derby saw Celtic hammered again at Ibrox, and a 2-1 win at Celtic Park gave Rangers their first win there in 2 years.
Bit of jockeying for position in there, and that's in! Drinkle left an open chance, and he sunk it. Look at that delirious Rangers support. Now just watch this covering. Really, from a Celtic point of view, quite lamentable. He looked up, nobody challenged, and there was a slight deflection. There's Ferguson with a shot. Oh, it's a brilliant one. And he's gone in. It's a second for Rangers. The goalkeeper couldn't stop it, and I think Ali got the final touch. Ali McCoist. A superbly struck free kick there. It whistled and brilliantly saved or stopped, and Ali McCoist just getting in the head in. Rangers are 2 on us. With a great chance, he scored. Walker. And there it is, and it's in. Beautifully by Sterling. With Drinkle. Well, that's not a bad ball then. A great goal, Sterling. All superbly taken by the big man. He is having a field day. Looking for Walters, and he just gets him there. Twice. Oh, brilliant goal, Drinkle. Oh, yes, superb goal. On to Cowan. There's a race forward, no offside. Drinkle. And he done it. His second. Rangers fourth.
No, I think that the success that Graham brought was aided by Walter. There's no question about that. And when Graham recognises it himself, he's tremendous respect for Walter. You know, every time I speak to Graham, the first thing I say, have you been speaking to Walter? You know, so there's a great affection between the two of them, and they did a great job, Graham. Anyway, but Walter as his assistant was a great choice.
The Scottish Premier Division trophy was back at Ibrox, and it would stay there for quite a while. Season 1988-89, the first of Rangers' incredible 9 league titles in a row. If Walter had hoped for a quiet summer, all that changed when the UK's press would converge on the club to see one man, Maurice Johnston.
Well, it was quite unbelievable because you know, the whole thing had been well documented, and Maurice was going to come back and join Celtic. So when Graham says we have the opportunity of signing Maurice, you say to yourself, oh, you know, how can that happen when he's already been paraded there?
Well, he fell off his chair, I think, when I first suggested it, and within a millisecond, he said that's a great idea. I was all for it, and then him and I drove through to Edinburgh and sat the chairman down, David Murray, and said, Walter's got an idea. No, it was something like that anyway.
In signing, he became only the second player to have played for both sides of the old firm since the Second World War.
We managed to do it, and Maurice Johnston was a great signing for Rangers. You know, he's a terrific player.
And Johnston's pairing with Ali McCoist, complemented by fellow new signing Trevor Steven, led Rangers to their first back-to-back league championship victory since 1976.
Johnston, and he scored! That's meant for Johnston, and he's done it! Oh, what a superb goal! Here's McCoist, Packman, he scored! That's a beautiful goal by Rangers. Spackman, Rangers' newest signing in his debut at an Old Firm game.
Of paramount importance for Rangers, this. And Bonner got to it but couldn't keep it out. Oh, and Johnston picked out by McCoist. 2-0. Splendid goal. Here goes McCoist. He's done it! 3-0.
The team was always evolving, and in the summer of 1990, Rangers went back into the transfer market and brought a rampaging target man from Monaco.
Yeah, I joined in the summer of '90 into a side that was all-conquering by then. You know, it was, I think it was 2 into the 9 in a row. So 91 was the 3 in a row season. And it was just a good place to be for me. I think I'd come over from the south of France, Monaco, after not playing for 2 years. And it was an ideal situation for me to be coming back into British football, British mentality, and coming into a side that was being, you know, constructed into an all-conquering side, should we say. A very, very young, inexperienced manager in Graham Souness, with a highly sought-after number 2 in Walter Smith. I think the pair were perfect for this football club. Obviously, Rangers orientated as well. Walter's obviously supported the club, you know, as a boy, as a man. And I think was the ideal foil for Graham. You know, his lack of knowledge in Scottish football. Walter, having worked under Jim McLean through at Dundee United, the vast knowledge of the Scottish game, and I think a good pedigree on the coaching side as well. So I think you know, coming into that, it's a completely different setup for me. Coming back from being abroad for 6 years. And it was just nice to be able to come in amongst it and, you know, get back into the humour, the mentality of British players, because at that stage we were a British side. You know, we still had the 3 foreigner rule. So it was a really good place to be, and a funny place to be as well. I think Graham, you know, was basically the front man of the club that I think gave the club and Scottish football a really good shaking. With the support of Walter, you know, right behind him. I think Walter was invaluable for him in the period that I was here. You know, Graham was I think his family was still down the road in England, so he spent 2 or 3 days a week down in England, and Walter basically was hands on here. So, you know, all the coaching and the training that was being done, Walter was there. And basically was on top of us all the time. So we had a really good working relationship with Walter.
Rangers were aiming for their 3rd league championship in a row, and in October 1990 at Hampden they faced Celtic in the League Cup final. And for the 62,000 there that wet day, another epic was on the cards.
And here come the teams now. Celtic led by Paul McStay, Richard Gough leading out Rangers. And of course for both of these captains, well, a chance for the first time ever to put their hands on the trophy. Getting the touch to McCoist. Walters! A magnificent goal by Matt Walters. 65 minutes, and look at the joy among the Rangers fans. Richard Gough launching the high ball in, headed down by Peapley to McCoist. He held off the challenge, and there was Walters to drill the ball into the back of the Celtic net. Stevens hoisting the high one for Hateley. In comes Richard Gough! Oh, a captain's goal from Richard Gough is mobbed by the Rangers players. The referee racing over to get them back onto the field. Well, what an afternoon it's turned out to be for Richard Gough. The ball breaking right through to him there. Morris failing to cut it out. And Gough forcing the ball over the line.
Well, that's a real opportunist goal from Richard Gough. Coming in at the back there, it was an awkward ball. Hateley went up for it initially. The bad bounce beat the Celtic defender, and there was Big Richard just getting a toe to it. But he's scored so many goals for Rangers in Scotland like that, hasn't he?
And here comes Richard Gough. Mr. John Mackenzie of Alloa Brewers handing over the Stall Cup. And Mrs. Jack Steedman will present the League Cup. A huge cheer going up from the Rangers fans. Rangers have now won 11 of the last 13 finals in this tournament. It really is quite remarkable. 4 times in the last 5 years.
With the first silverware of the season in the bag, the league campaign was the focus, and Rangers under Graham Souness were on course for the title. That was, however, until the manager's former club came calling.
Well, Graham had been already had the notion of going to Liverpool, and he came and told me that he would now like to go. And I said, well, that's great. I think it's probably best you leave now. And it was a big risk I took because we were in a struggle with Aberdeen to win the championship.
Graham was one of those boys where I don't think he would ever stay in one job for a great length of time. He got the call to go as Liverpool manager when Kenny Dalglish left. Graham turned it down initially, got a second opportunity and decided to go.
Yeah, I tried to persuade him to come because I knew that we were a formidable partnership. And he said, no, Rangers is his club. It's the one he grew up as a boy, he's a Glasgow boy, he grew up as a boy supporting. And he saw that as the ultimate job for him at that time.
From one point of view, when I looked down at Liverpool, they had their coaching staff in place there. Phil Boersma, who was on my staff here, was going with Graham. And I didn't see that there was a place for me. So it was a little bit of a worrying period, I must say, just going there. But I'll always be grateful to Graham for a great 5 years, and then the opportunity to go to Liverpool with him, which he had asked me to do. But as I say, I didn't think that was the right thing. So we were left I was left in a period like most people when a manager leaves a club, that you don't know what's going to happen.
Then Sir David Murray, or David Murray at that point, approached you and offered you the position. I guess it must have been a dream come true.
Yeah, he phoned me on the evening that Graham had intimated to him that he was leaving. He phoned to ask me if I would take the team till the end of the season. And he came through and saw me on a Wednesday and said to me, look, I must say you're in our thoughts to take over.
I actually told David Murray to give it to him. I think David at the time wanted to go maybe get a bigger name, maybe felt he needed a bigger name, but I think he saw in Walter that he was the man for the job, and that's how it turned out to be.
The day that Graham left and I did a press conference, I offered Walter the job within an hour. And he took it, but I said, let's just take it easy for a couple of weeks, let's just chew the cud, let this go through, and that's what we did, and he became the manager.
Which was a big thing for me, because obviously at that time, Rangers standing was really high, and they could have gone to any of the English teams and tried to attract a manager with a good track record there. So me being an assistant to Graham over a period, not having had the opportunity to manage before, it was a huge decision for Sir David to make. And so he told me on a Wednesday that he was thinking of it, and he would speak to me later. And then he asked to meet me on Saturday morning at Ibrox, and I met him on a Saturday morning prior to a game at Love Street, and he told me that he was going to offer me the job, which, from my own point of view was fantastic. And he said to me, will you just keep it quiet for another week? I still don't know the reason why he asked to do that, but we did that. So there was still all sorts of speculation surrounding it. But then, the following week I was announced as manager. So from that point of view, it probably gave me the kind of proudest moment in my career, to be asked to become the manager of a club he supported, and a club that's got such a great tradition.
When the period came for Graham to move on to Liverpool, I think it was for me it was a no-brainer. It was a natural progression for me. I think for Walter to come up, even though he'd not had the managerial experience. I think that the fact that he knew all the players, he knew what the football club, he knew what the standards of the football club, the expectations of the football club. I think everything was geared for him to take over. It was I think a couple of little words, I think, with the chairman, with the senior players. I think, to be fair, David, you know, asked the players. He came to the players and said, you know, what do you think? And you know, I think straight away, automatically, you know, the reply was Walter. It has to be Walter. You know, he knew what we are, what we're all about. He knew everything about all the players there and then. And you know, the chairman made the right decision for me.
He knew the ropes, he knew the players. And it's funny, you know, 20 years later, the same thing's happened again with Alistair coming in. So it was a logical thing for me to do.
From my point of view, I was absolutely thrilled. You know, I thought the managers, I thought Walter would get offered it. I thought he should get offered it. I was delighted he got offered it. You know, from a selfish point of view, I was thrilled. I couldn't have worked it any better. But there's always a doubt that somebody else, you know, the chairman and the board will go and get somebody else. But I thought it was an obvious candidate. And I remember speaking. I asked the manager, I asked Walter about 2 days before it broke, and he was very honest. He said, "Yeah, if I got offered it, I'm going to take it." And he did get offered it, and he took it. And you know, the rest is history. It was certainly another. You talk about great moves. You know, I think Graham bringing Walter as his assistant was a fantastic move. Equally, I think the chairman offering Walter a job and Graham left was a great bit of business also.
The calibre, obviously, manager Graham Souness leaving, I think it would be very easy for Rangers to go and try and get a manager in. But so David Murray had great faith in the gaffer, and again, it paid dividends.
And it was funny when Graham left and Walter was going to be taking over, and the day before it was announced, there was Coist and there was a few were tipped off that Walter's getting the job, and I remember dropping my brother as far out as Lanark, putting bets on in the bookies, and I think we managed to get a couple of grand out of that bit of information. So I never did give Walter any of the money of it, but I think Coist was doing the same, and we were dropping our pals off and getting bets on, and then the rest was history after that, what he's achieved.
The thing about it was I lost my assistant because he took Archie. It was exactly what I'd have done exactly the same myself. That's what I said to Walter. It was a funny thing because he was due to come to a League Cup final, Walter, and he phoned me and says, "I'm not going to manage." Little did I know he was getting the Rangers job. And the next day he phones me and says, "Look, if I spoke to Archie," I said, I said, "Oh, thanks, that's very great." And Archie, and I tried to get, I mean, what Rangers were offering him financially was far better than I was offering him, and so he had every right to take it, Archie. And I just couldn't get my chairman to up the ante to once me, you know.
Aye, that was a really tricky decision, and you know, just one that you sort of say, right, then you've got to look after your family and stuff like that, and it was based on that plus the opportunity to work with Walter. I mean, I had a fantastic 10 years probably with Alec at Aberdeen and Manchester United, and back to Aberdeen. But knowing Walter so well, and knowing that he's starting out in a new job for himself, taking over as manager of such a big club, a traditional club like Rangers, then you know, then it was a difficult decision. There's no question about that. But one that I don't regret, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time there, 7 years. And of course, it's always great when you're associated with success.
I felt that was important, you know, that I was getting an experienced assistant, in the sense that, you know, when you are with the players as closely as you are as assistant manager on a day-to-day basis, you know, when you were moving upstairs, I think it was important to let everybody realise that, you know, you weren't going to be occupying the same position. You would have a different responsibility there. So I felt it was important that I got someone to there. You know, I spoke to Archie and he agreed to come and join us. So you know, that was the start of an extremely successful period for us.
I could understand what Walter was wanting to do. I mean, don't forget that the league decided against Aberdeen on Saturday, that very week, you know. In a sense, it had to happen, that Archie would leave immediately, which left me without my assistant for the final.
But you still managed to win.
I tell people, please tell Archie that.
I can remember my first game was against Motherwell, and they were building the new stand at Ibrox. They're building the top tier of the stand, and we'd lost 3-0. And I come in the Monday morning, the guys are working away, and one of the guys shouts from down, he's doing a bit of concrete work or something like that. He says, "You've made a bloody great difference to us." So that wasn't a very great start for us, but luckily enough then the Aberdeen game the following week was a tremendous performance.
But I remember I was taking injections and had problems with my Achilles for 6 months, and it eventually ruptured that day. But the day before, Walter had said about, "I need you tomorrow," and I took an injection, and it was great just to win the league.
Manager Walter Smith is able to show faith in exactly the same starting lineup as the one which lost at Motherwell last week, because Gary Stevens has recovered from a muscle injury to maintain his amazing ever-present record for the season. The most eagerly awaited moment in Scottish football for a very long time has arrived. The biggest showdown perhaps in league history, with the two top sides clashing. Remember, a draw would give the title to Aberdeen. Rangers require a victory. There's Durant, Hayfley, Ferguson. Across it goes to Stevens. Always wants to check onto his right foot though, Gary Stevens. Interception made by Wright. Here's Ferguson. Hustled all the way by Grant. Kimmy's clearance. Walters wants to bring the ball down and take on Wright. Going for the early cross. There's Hayfley. It's a magnificent goal for Rangers. 5 minutes from half-time and Ibrox erupts. It's just about the first time in the match Mark Hayfley's had the better of Alec McLeish. It was a delightful cross and a masterly finish. Set up here by Walters. With good decoy runs made there, notably by Gary Stevens. That ball flighted across. And this is Mark Hayfley at his very best. And what a double! Well, a goal of genuine quality. And Rangers now go back into the championship driving seat. Hayfley getting up again. McLeish didn't follow him that time. Here's Connor. Laying it up the line for Booth. The layup was intended for McKimmie, but he's released Johnston. Hayfley waits in the middle. He will look to be offside. Well, the referee's allowed the goal. And Rangers are 2 in front. The error made in defence by Scott Booth. Chris Woods is celebrating, so too the Rangers supporters. Mark Hayfley gets his second. Well, here was Johnston. Now Hayfley appeared to me to go into an offside position behind Alec McLeish. But the shot was released by Johnston. Watt couldn't hold it. It bounced away from him, and Hayfley was first to react to turn the ball into the net. Well, here's Johnston again, playing that beyond McLeish, blocked by Watt. Well, Hayfley in a suspiciously offside position. But to give credit to Aberdeen, very few complaints from them. And now they have a major mountain to climb. Angling that across for Van der Ark. Nisbet did well. There goes Brian Grant. An offside flag up against Van der Ark, I think. And John Brown has gone down very awkwardly indeed. It will be a free kick to Rangers when everything settles down, but John Brown clutching his left calf. Well, that's an area where cramp is frequently a problem. Certainly a signal for Ali McCoist to warm up on the track. Well, there's a stretcher being produced down on the track there.
You know, when you consider, I think we finished up with Mo Johnston that playing in midfield. John Brown had done his Achilles. I mean, it was just the walking wounded. They'd had that prior to the game, but during the game, John Brown had played with an injection in his Achilles and stuff like that, and then that ruptured during the game. So, you know, then there was a lot of people put a lot of effort into winning that championship, and once Walter had got that one under his belt, then and the players that we could attract at that particular time, then it gave us a great chance, and went on to have a fantastic time there.
But I actually believe that game when we beat Aberdeen was up there as one of the greatest last days ever. We've had a few, right enough. I think that was a classic.
I think the final day game against Aberdeen here, to win the league, as you say, when Walter was in charge, you know, to keep the 9 in a row going, to be the 9 in a row seasons, you know, it was just, I think, a culmination. You know, a long, hard season for me, getting back to the top of my game, change of management, a new manager coming in, the pressures of that sort of pressure that came onto Walters right at the beginning. I think that just set us up for the rest, you know, for the heady 90s, should we say.
Every eye now on the referee as the ball is out of play, waiting to see if Brian McGinley will bring this match to an end and make it formally Rangers Championship. There it is! Rangers have won the championship. So Rangers have won the championship thanks to 2 goals from Mark Hateley. One 5 minutes before half-time, a header from the Walters cross, and then 10 minutes into the second half, Michael Watt couldn't hold a shot from Maurice Johnston, and Mark Hateley made it 2. Aberdeen then had no answer. They battled all the way to the end. Rangers defended extremely well despite losing Tom Cowan in the first half and John Brown in the second through injury. But Rangers in the end running out excellent winners and proving themselves to be genuine champions after this very long season.
It gave me an opportunity to show supporters that you could handle a winning team even though you'd only been in charge for 3 or 4 matches. We weren't in the best of conditions injury-wise at that time. Injury and suspension towards the end of that season had taken its toll. We had a situation where we had to put players, you know, onto the pitch who we knew weren't fit. John Brown was the biggest example. We knew he would have to come off at some stage in the game. And we managed to get ourselves in front. We had to bring on Ali McCoist and Ian Durrant, who weren't fit to play. We had to bring them on in the latter stages of the game. And I think it's one of the amazing things there. And I always say to people, it shows you the power that a support can generate, because the atmosphere inside Ibrox that day was second to none. It was fantastic. And we had a situation there where I think one of the good questions would be to ask, you know, where the players finished. If I can remember correctly, Mark Hateley finished at left back. You know, we had, as I say, 2 injured players, you know, Ali McCoist and Ian Durrant playing up front for us. And Maurice Johnston at outside left. I mean, I think we had things like that going on during the game, and the changes that we had to make. So we managed to win, and that was the main thing. And it was, from my own point of view, I think that it was good to show supporters that, as I say, that he could take over and still manage to win a championship.
An incredible performance saw the Light Blues make it 3 in a row. Walter Smith was now at the helm of Rangers Football Club, the team he followed as a boy, and now the manager, holding aloft the league trophy.